I went to Shenzhen and visited PCBWay factory to create this video about how PCB is manufactured and how boards are assembled. So basically how electronics boards are made. And everything starts with this big raw material. It is basically huge two-layer PCB. This raw material, it has copper on top and bottom, and between these two layers there is isolation. So it's really like big two-layer PCB. Usually it is called core, and we have to cut down this big raw material into panels. Machines in this factory, they work with specific size of panels. So that's why we need to cut it down. And as you can see, this machine can cut down multiple materials at once, which of course speed up the process. Now you can see this is the size of the panel. And before we send it to the next step, we would like to also round the corners, so it's safer to manipulate with these panels. So that's what this machine is doing. It's basically rounding the corners. Watch how the corner will look. See? Next step is drilling. So when someone is designing PCBs, one of the outputs from the PCB design is a file which is called drill file, and this file has information about the position and size of all the holes on the PCB. And these machines, they will take this file and they will drill these holes into the panel. As you can see, he is putting their additional protective layer on top of these panels. This layer, I think it's like aluminum layer, maybe it can be also different material, but it is used to make the drilling more precise, and I think it can also take heat away. So it's helping with drilling. And as you can see, they can drill multiple panels at once, not only with multiple drilling machines, but there are also multiple panels on top of each other. Very often they use like 5 panels on top of each other. This is next step. It's called Electroless copper plating, and in this step we are going to put copper inside of the holes. So we drill the holes, but right now there is no connection between top and bottom layer on our PCB. So we need to put a conductive layer inside of the vias. And we do it in 2 steps. The first step is called electroless plating because it's a chemical process. And the second step is called electroplating. And we do it in 2 steps because this electroless plating can put copper on non-conductive surface. So because there is epoxy inside of the hole, we need this kind of process. But this is quite slow, and I think it's even more expensive than the electroplating, which is much faster and I think also cheaper. That's why it is done in 2 steps. So this is just the first step right now. This is just the electroless plating, okay? And before electroplating is done, there will be few more steps what we are going to do with this PCB. So first, we need to wash these PCBs. That's what's going to happen here. They need to be cleaned properly. All the chemicals need to be removed, even from the holes. But also the surface needs to be very clean, because in the next step we are going to apply photosensitive foil on top of these PCBs. So this line, what you can see here, it's used to clean the boards. And in this video I will show it only once, but actually this line is used very often between different processes. Cleaning the PCBs is very important. And this line is built from this kind of segments. Each segment is doing something a little bit different, and by the end of the line there are like heating elements to dry the PCBs. And as you can see, by the end of the line the PCBs will go into this yellow room. Let's have a look inside. To get inside we need to wear this special suit, and because it has to be very clean room. And it's yellow because we are working with the photosensitive layer. That's why there is the yellow light. So here the washed PCBs are coming out from the line. Notice the color of the PCB, the surface, and you can see the foil there already. So the foil is going to be applied on the top and also very often on the bottom of the PCB, on both sides. Notice the color of the PCB now. You can see the color change a little bit. It's now a little bit darker. And this machine is just holding the PCBs. It's kind of buffer. Okay, they have also a different way how to apply this foil on the top of the panel. So this is smaller machine, and this is the other way how it can be done. Once we have the photosensitive layer, we need to somehow project our PCB, the tracks, on this board, and that's exactly what this machine is doing. So basically when you draw your PCB, when you draw a layout, all the tracks and everything is projected on the material here in this machine. And once they remove it from this machine, you will be able to notice the tracks. See? Right now, we still need to process this photosensitive layer. So he's removing the protective film, and he's putting this PCB into this next line. So notice how the PCB looks right now when it goes inside of the line, and how it will look when it goes outside of the line. Here is the end of the line. And now you can very nicely see the copper and the tracks which are created by the photosensitive layer. Next, as I already mentioned, we are going to do the electroplating. Notice, because it's electroplating, these PCBs, they have to be electrically connected to the machine. Notice the clamps. And this blue color, that's where the copper plating is happening. But this line, it has two parts. So after electroplating, after we grow the copper inside of the vias, and also copper will grow also on the top and bottom layers. After this, they will put the PCBs inside of this thin bath. So basically they will put thin layer on the top of the copper. Notice how the color changed. Now the color of the PCBs is blue and white. The white color is the thin. And we do it because the tin will go also inside of the vias and it will protect the copper. We need this protection for the next step. So this next line basically removes the photosensitive layer. This is the waste. The blue thing is basically the photosensitive layer removed from the PCB. So in the first step we will remove the blue stuff from the PCB. Watch how it looks and how it will look when it goes out. All these machines are, doing something, but basically they are removing the blue color. And now the PCB is white and copper. White is the tin and copper is now directly exposed, and this copper is going to be removed in the next step. So again, watch how the PCB looks now and how it will look in the next step. Okay, you can see the copper is removed, but tin is still there. Again, watch how it looks. And in the next step, we are going to remove the tin layer. And here you can see, here we have nice PCB. So all the tracks, copper tracks and copper areas, they are still there and everything else is removed. After this process, there is optical inspection. So this machine is checking if there are any possible problems. And here, if there is something what needs to be fixed, they will just fix it. Yeah, because you really don't want to send bad PCBs to the next processes. Here we are going to apply green solder mask. So this is usually the green color on PCB, but this color, it can be different. Very often black, blue, red is used. So this is how they do it, how they apply the color, green color on PCB. And where the pads are, we need to remove the green color. So there are more ways how they can do it. One of the ways is they can put this film on top of the panel. Again, they will expose they will expose the solder mask to UV light, and then the solder mask in the places where the pads are will be removed by chemical process. Again, notice the light is yellow because the solder mask is photosensitive. Or they can do it inside of this machine. So this machine is not using the film. This is more effective. This machine will directly draw in the places which needs to be exposed. Okay, once we have the mask removed and correct, then we do Silkscreen. Silkscreen, basically that's the white color on PCB. You can see how it is done. Of course, to remove the solder mask, it has to go through some lines. It would be very similar line and very similar process what we already seen. So I have not recorded that process. In the next step, the PCB needs to be tested, and it is done by these big machines. They have many machines, so they can test every PCB. Basically, it measures the connections between the paths and points on the PCB, and it's looking for short circuits or maybe disconnected lines. This is how they do color PCBs. So I'm not sure if you've seen this, but this is one of the ways how the color PCB can be created. So not only green color, but basically nice pictures. You can have any picture on top of your PCB. And these are tools which are used for testing boards. PCB is almost finished, so it has to be cut out from the big panel. In this process, basically if you send your PCB into production, in this step it will be cut out from the big panel and you will get your small PCB. This is the final inspection and then packaging. So if you ever ordered PCBs from PCBWay, this is how they pack the boards before they are shipped to you. It's a very interesting machine. Watch what's going to happen. I'm going to speed up this a little bit. And it's done. And last step is to ship the PCB to you. If they are manufacturing multi-layer PCB, they need this additional material. So this is called pre-preg. This is basically isolation between other layers, and they also need copper layer. Usually this is placed on top and bottom of multi-layer PCBs. For more layer PCB, they need to put the inner layers together. So they use this machine. You can see there are already 2 layers. Now we are putting here isolation, and here are another 2 layers. So in total these are like 4 layers which are going to be placed inside of probably 6-layer PCB. And they need to stitch these layers together so they are in precise location. They must not move. Okay, and here we will see how the top and bottom layers are created for multi-layer PCB. So this is going to be bottom layer. Now you can see there is pre-preg, and then inside there are 2 layers and then pre-preg again. So this is going to be 4, or these are going to be 4-layer PCBs. And what is missing? What do we need to put on the top? Copper. Okay. So this is how 4-layer PCB is made. Of course, this is not the end of the process. Once these layers are built like this, we have to bake the layers together. So they go into oven. This is a robot which is going to place these boards into oven. So there are two machines in the background. This on the left, that's the oven, and on the right there is a machine which is used to cool down the PCBs. So now you can see the robot is going to push the PCBs inside of the oven. In the oven, PCBs are going to be heated up and pressure is going to be applied on these PCBs. I think they need to stay in the oven like maybe 1 hour or something, I don't know. And then they will move it to the other machines to cool down for, I don't know, I think another 2 hours or something. Okay, so now they are in the oven. Okay, these PCBs, they are already cooled down, so the machine is going to take them out. And now you can see there are the PCBs. This step is also very interesting. So they need to find out position of the inner layers, and they use this kind of marking to find it. So this is X-ray machine. And based on the position of this marking, it will make tooling holes. So based on the tooling holes, in the next step, the next machine will know exactly how the inner layers are placed inside of this panel. Otherwise, you know, they could maybe drill to completely different places. See, these are the tooling holes. And the holes are used to place the panel into right position when drilling is done in the next step. And we finished PCB manufacturing. This is for board assembly or soldering components on the board. Here in this step, the solder paste was applied on the pads where the components will be placed. Then it goes inside of the assembly machine, and this machine is going to place components on PCB. So you can see the machine is placing components. On the left you can see feeders. It's called feeder. Basically there are the components. If there are too many components, they can have like multiple assembly machines in a row, like what you can see here in this case. Okay, so all the components are placed, and now the boards will go into oven. Here you can see this is the beginning of the oven. and it takes some time to go through the oven. Basically, the boards will be heated up, the solder will melt, and all the components will be soldered down. The oven is quite big. Here you can see it can have like different temperature zones. For example, 3 or 4 temperature zones, different temperature in every zone, because you would like to heat up the PCB slowly, and then you need to also cool it down. And here are the finished boards. Once the boards are finished, they go through check. So they will check all the components. If it's needed, they will fix the possible problems. And then the final board needs to be tested. So some companies provide this kind of like test setup. This is how it looks. Basically, this test setup will power up the board which is tested and test everything on the board. If there are through hole components, they need to be placed manually, like what you can see here. So if someone is designing PCBs, keep in mind that through-hole components can make your board more expensive, because it's an extra step in manufacturing. And once they place all the components, through-hole components on the board, this board will go inside of this machine. This machine will put flux on the board, so it's easy to solder down the through-hole components, and then it goes through this wave. Watch what's happening. That's a thin wave, and that's how the through-hole components will be soldered. Okay, and board is finished. If needed, they also do some inspection and possible fixes. And if everything is okay, boards are working properly, everything soldered properly, they will clean the boards, pack them, and send them to you.
On behalf of PCBWay, warmly welcome you, Robert.
Thank you so much. PCBWay!
Yeah, it's PCBWay!
And that's everything. Thank you very much for watching this video. By the way, we are preparing some very interesting tutorials, so if you don't want to miss them, hit the subscribe button. If you want, you can also check out our Fedevel online courses, where you will find everything important from basic board design up to advanced hardware design and PCB layout. The link is in the description. That's all for this video. Thank you again. Don't forget to leave your comments, and see you next time. Bye.